and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
For the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
For the World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion of the world.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling
Well, hello,
Championship.
ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Right and Wrong Pros Podcast. This is your host, Mr. Green, and thank you for tuning in to this week's show, which we've got a good fair amount to cover in the WOW, Women of Wrestling. Of course, it won't be the only thing that I do. I try to dig through a little bit and, just cleanse the palate of myself and whoever has decided to tune in and listen, just to be able to talk about something else non-WOW for a little bit, just a little, so we can have some fresh perspectives, some fresh matches, some fresh content to talk about. However, it will go beyond that once we get past the segment that I've filtered all those things in. Then we'll go into the episode of WOW, which features a lot and has got the, I guess, long-awaited championship match. Is that what we're looking at here? Or championship matches, because there was two of them. So before we get to that, let's do our normal segment here that lists me into talking about life outside of WOW Women of Wrestling. So let's hit the news, views, and updates, and then we'll move on. So coming up, news, views, and updates. And what's going on out there in the world of women's wrestling so far? Well, we have Evolution around the corner. Speaking of which, is going to be taking place here in my backyard, so to speak. It'll be in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, it's going to be a heavy wrestling weekend, of course, because that's what the WWE does these days. They just will not be satisfied with doing one. They got to do like 2 or 3 shows back to back. So the weekend of, the Saturday night's main event, they will return. The Evolution. I get, are they referring to, I guess it won't be Evolution part, it's technically part 2, but they've had 7 years in between that, so we'll just say Evolution 2025. It is due next month, July the 13th, and there are reports that Trish Stratus would return to the company. It has been reported as such. According to a source, the announcement of Trish Stratus' return and the company graphics were set to air prior to John Cena's second promo of the night on this June 13th episode of SmackDown. While that is scrapped, the return is still in the books for Stratus to be part of Evolution. So, I think it's safe to say that, the hallmark player of women's wrestling for the WWE, which by all accounts, regardless of skill or what you may have thought of her as she came in or who has come in behind her since that time, Trish Stratus is basically held up as their bar. And it's probably in their minds only right that she be there. And I agree. I mean, she pretty much was the focal point for the win. Not just that, but she also became the example. If we can have this good-looking young woman be trained and become who she was in the ring, then certainly we can do it again. And they tried. Just hire them and we'll train. Now, I don't agree. I didn't agree then with the WWE doing it, nor do I agree now with other promotions, wink, wink, doing it now. But let's call it for what it is. As far as the WWE's universe is concerned, Trish Stratus was largely a big part of why they kept doing that, because she was able to make it work. Now, I do think that it was a case of Stratus at some point decided to give herself over to being a wrestler and not just the model that's there. Like, I have to learn how to do this and do this right and do this well. I can't just go around, look pretty, and do the moves. I need to know why I'm doing the moves and a little bit of the psychology that's around the things that go on bell to bell. Because at some point in time, that bell has got to ring. You cannot depend on how well you acted outside of it or how pretty you were beyond that. So, yeah, she was able to get past that. They repeated the process a couple of times. In some cases, it didn't work, and I'm not going to slander anybody at this point. I'm sure if you went through the WWE's roster and, look at the Diva search process in general. Just be pretty and we'll train you. That was the requirement at the time. Or to use Jim Ross's words, find athletic 10s. That's how it's pretty much categorized. But we've moved on. We are, I guess at this point, decades past that. Wow, has it been that long? Whew. We're decades past that, and now you need to know what you're doing. Sure, they'll hire some people and they'll train them, but they will put them through the ringer of training this time. It won't just be, we'll hire you, we'll train you, and 5 or 6 months later you're back on TV where you don't know what you're doing. See Eva Marie. Because, as much as people get on her, I also feel like, that wasn't entirely her fault. Because they fast-tracked her on the television, and by not just her, but probably their own admission, she wasn't ready for that. But, certain decision makers decided that she was good looking enough, so that was good enough. Anyhow, all of that to say, Trish Stratus is likely to be involved in Evolution this go around, which is not a big shocking thing, I know, in the very least. And it'd be wonderful to see her there. Now, I won't be there because those tickets are ridiculously high. I think just on the low end is somewhere around $300 to sit up in the nosebleeds. At least a good $280 last I checked. And now that I'm thinking about it, I would imagine it's sold out by now. And they had these specials that was going on, like buy one get two. It's not buy one get two. It was a bundle deal. That's probably a better way to put it. I don't want to give the impression that, well, if I get this ticket, then I'll get the other one. No, it wasn't like that. So there you have it. Evolution continues on. For those of you who've not taken the time to see anything that has taken place on Evolution or WWE's Evolution, let's be more specific. I cannot define it any better than what I said before. Their Evolution show is very much like the WWE's version of an indie show. It is bare bones. It is a very small crowd, especially by WWE standards. Like, I've gone to indie shows that have more audience participation, more audience members than what Evolution is showing on their TV right now. But they don't need the money. And we know that. They do not need the money. They can do exactly what they're doing. They just got themselves what looks like a warehouse, painted the walls black, maybe gave you 2 or 3 rows worth of chairs and a wrestling ring. The most expensive thing that I see, visually speaking, is the LED wall that they walk out from. Now, I'm sure, of course, they got other things in there. They had the broadcast set up, so on and so forth, the cameras and all of that good stuff. But we just talking about the aesthetic of the show. Not a lot of lighting. It's pretty dark. But in any case, all of that to say two things. One, Kylie Rae, who we have seen participate in multiple promotions across the years, including she was Reality Wrestling Diamonds Division champion, I believe, twice. Was it twice? She was one of the featured players. So we're just gonna go. She's a former Diamond Divisions champion. I don't want to misspeak. And from there, she went to branching her wings out across the Indies. She did appear in TNA. Unfortunately, that didn't last too long, but those other reasons. And we won't get into her reasons for not wanting to be there. AEW, we know that was kind of highly publicized as well, where she went there and didn't want to remain. She appeared at the NWA. She was on the Empower pay-per-view, matter of fact. And now she's here. Kylie Rae has made the rounds. She has been regarded as one of the standouts of the Indies. So her being on WWE's television is not surprising, at least in my eyes, whatsoever. I just hope that this is what she needs. It doesn't seem like her persona, as far as being in the ring, has changed all that much. She's still, like at one point in time, people kind of compared her to early version of Bayley. The happy-go-lucky wrestler girl. And that's maybe a good reason why she wasn't there earlier or something like that, because, before Bayley went heel, they pretty much already had that. Well, now Bayley is a different persona. Bayley's a different thing. And there's no one in the WWE that I can look at that really has Kylie Rae's happy-go-lucky, rainbows are beautiful, etc., gimmick. She did participate in the last woman standing match with Wendy Chu, who was, I guess, more involved on the Evolution's television right now, opposed to NXT. They had this match, and it went over 12 minutes, and Kylie Rae won. Yay for her. Of course, you can see all of this on Tubi TV, which is a free platform for those who don't look at it or still question it or whatever the case may be. Tubi is actually a good streaming service. If you can deal with the commercials, it's a good streaming service. I know there's been a lot of people, almost any time I've ever brought Tubi up, they still have the same ideal of what Tubi TV is. That, oh man, that's the that streaming thing that got all those B movies and crap on there. Now, I'm not going to tell you that those B movies don't exist. They're still there. It's just that since Tubi was purchased by a major studio, they have access to bigger movies now. And oftentimes, that's a lot of what you get when you just turn the service on. I mean, I remember once they rotate the big ones kind of in and out, but I remember once going there, they had like the full John Wick series there for a limited basis. So there's always some high-profile movies that are available on Tubi these days. So if you still had the impression of it from like 10 years ago, you may want to give it another chance. And if you're looking for more wrestling content beyond Evolution, there's also NXT. Since we no longer have a WWE network here in the United States, at least, and if you were looking to go through some of the old NXTs or the current NXTs, if you don't have an antenna and for whatever reason you don't pick it up, well, you can watch it there too. It also appears on Tubi TV. So you got the catalog for the bulk of NXT that's already there. I do believe last time I checked, there was a couple of years in the middle. Well, I think it was the Nickelodeon Splash Zone era. I think some of those episodes are missing, if I'm remembering correctly. But outside of that, everything else is there. So if you want to go back and see the original black and gold era, the things that got NXT hot, including the women's matches, because let's be honest, a good chunk of that women's evolution kicked off there. A good portion of it started right there on that black and gold brand. So if that's what you're looking for, you want some quality matches. I mean, go back and look at Natalya versus Charlotte when they kind of was trying to reestablish the championship following Paige going up to the main roster, which was another one, and that's kind of overlooked Paige and Emma. Yeah, now that I'm saying that out loud, that was a really overlooked match. Like that, it is almost never brought up in the same breath as the quote four horsewomen. But all of that's there, available for you to watch right now. Speaking of Natalya, and part of this is just going to be my personal statement. I wish that she had done more while she was out there. And I was loving seeing Natty Neidhart for a second there. And then the NWA just like yanked the rug from me. Now, I don't know if it was their decision to be like, okay, we're going to have Kenzie Page go over on Natty Neidhart. I still think that was just a bad decision, in my view. Because as I said then, yes, she's a talented young lady. And I'm not going to take that away from Page, Kenzie Page. But she's had the NWA Women's Championship for, 2 years now. I mean, it's been a long time. And I don't know if she has anything else to offer that. It is, you don't want to crap on her as a talent. I mean, but yeah, she's got to be easily over a good 2 years at this stage. If not that, getting damn close to it. There's nothing else that she can do for that title. There's nothing else that she can do right now for that title. Even her beating Natty Neidhart, and I know I'm getting off the subject, but even her beating Natty Neidhart is kind of like just a forgotten thing. It came and it went. Now, if Natty had the championship, it'd have been an entirely different issue. The NWA would still be on the mouths and the minds of people right now if she was running around as a contracted WWE talent that won the NWA Women's World Championship. But I'll say this, fortunately for the viewing public at large, this overall story, as far like the WWE fans are concerned, doesn't exist. They probably do not know that she ran around as Natty Neidhart for any length of time. They probably do not know that she challenged for that championship. And they probably do not know that she just went pretty much back to being Natalya. And that's why I got disappointed. I was like, she just, after those great promos that she was cutting, and the change of her appearance, and being taken serious, all that stuff, after those few fleeting months that we had of her, and the best that I've seen her in a long time, she just pretty much went back to being Natalya. And now she is wanting to be the WWE Evolve Women's Champion. Well, I am never going to bet against Natalya. I like her as a talent, whether she's Natalya or Natty Neidhart. I like her in both. But it just feels like she is going back to being everything that she said as Natty Neidhart that she was. Natalya elevates. And that's what it feels like. Like she became Natalya at the end of the NWA, or the match that she had, because she theoretically helped elevate Kenzie Page. But now here she is on like another rung of the WWE ladder. It's kind of the same thing that she did when NXT was kicking off. Let me go down here and have a couple of matches. Now, that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. It was kind of the same thing that before he got hurt, Tyson Kidd did. He was able to go down there and kind of reinvent himself for the time that he was there. And I'm sure Natalya's matches in an evolved environment are going to be everything that you would want them to be. She'll probably show a side of herself that she hasn't had a chance to show in a long time. But it just feels like we've been there and done that. I would have, if she is the legend that women's division needs, i.e. much like a Terry Funk was in ECW and he helped bring some people up, even though he did become ECW champion. If this is the equivalent of that, where she has to be in that company, maybe win a championship, help bring some people up, then and have some great matches along the way, then yeah, okay, I get it. What I don't want is for her just to basically repeat the process that she did all those years ago, talk about how she wanted to be the NXT Women's Champion, go into this high-profile match, lose, and then essentially not be heard from again in NXT. So here we are. She, at the end of the show, is backstage with Stevie Turner and asking, well, not asking, letting her know that she wants to have a match against Kaylee Armstrong, their current Evolve Women's Champion, for the title, obviously. So that should give something to look forward to. Maybe it's a ploy to bump the viewership up. If this gets out and it gets around and it draws some interest in people going to Tubi to watch that match, then I'm sure that the WWE will feel like they've accomplished what they needed to accomplish. Having Natalya there and having somebody that with some name power be interested in their, what would we call this? Like their fourth rung women's championship? Well, we got Raw, got SmackDown. Well, I guess it's not Raw and SmackDown for them. It's WWE Women's Championship, World Championship. And we're going to just exclude the mid-cards, NXT Women's Championship and Evolve. So I guess that would be like their fourth rung. But having her be interested in that title may, and I stress may, draw some interest for that particular championship. So it's something I'm interested in. I will check it out. I just hope that I get more of Natty Neidhart rather than, more of Natalya in this particular instance. Speaking of other women's champions and championships, the forever champion, Athena, is set to take on Thunder Rosa in the title match set for Super Card of Honor. I'm really convinced that that Tony Khan has pretty much just allowed Ring of Honor to kind of fall by the wayside, at least mentally. Like, I'll get to it when I get to it. It's great that Athena has had this championship for as long as she's had it. But seriously, man, she's had some good matches. I'm not going to sit up here and say that never took place. It just never feels like it's a bigger deal than anything that's going on in this primary baby, which is AEW. So that is an interesting championship reign that she has. But the championship reign in and of itself is not the real big deal here. It is that she is now facing off against her rival, or her most recent rival, in Thunder Rosa. So will that mean a change of titles? It's going to take place on Friday, July the 11th in Texas. And she being Thunder Rosa, has tweeted out, "You, Athena, have something I've been waiting for a long time, or wanting for a long time." And Thunder Rosa is prepared to risk it all for the ROH Women's Championship at Super Card of Honor, July 11th, Arlington, Texas. Well, she's had a lot of challengers. And just because it's the Ring of Honor Championship, and just because I don't think that is viewed as important, good Lord, let me get the words out. Viewed as important as the AEW Women's Championships, plural, because I'm going to include Monet's title in that, does not mean that she has not been a good fighting champion and has not had quality opponents. That much she's had. and certainly would never diminish her championship run by adding in qualifiers such as that. I hope that this match can draw some people to watch it. I probably will not be one of them. But you can watch it on watchroh.com. I've just fallen off of Ring of Honor since the purchase of Ring of Honor to AEW, obviously. It's not the Ring of Honor that it was. That's just a side note statement, by the way, but yeah, it's just not the Ring of Honor that it was. It feels very much like when WWE bought that ECW. Like, it was entertaining at certain points, and I could certainly feel and see that at the end of it, it had the elements of what became an NXT. Like, it felt more like if we don't know what to do with this person, let's send them to ECW or let them revamp themselves there, something like that. If they had a small arena that they could have dedicated matches in and live in their own universe, they probably been fine. And I apply that same logic to Ring of Honor. If they could be in their own arena and they can be something close to what the Ring of Honor was, because I don't know if that promotion was ever designed to be in major arenas or big arenas. There was a certain look to the aesthetic. I mean, there was a certain aesthetic that Ring of Honor had. There was a certain look that they possessed, and it worked for them. It wasn't overly polished. It wasn't overly glamorized. It was highly focused on the in-ring action, whether that was male or female. So now it just feels like a byproduct of AEW, and I know I'm on my soapbox again. I'm ranting, and I apologize. So that is, it's not a lot of big news that's going on. That is some of it. I mean, I could go through, well, this person wrestled that person and so on and so forth, but I don't know if that's really necessarily all that important overall. But I do think what is important is getting prepared to address and talk about the episode of WoW that I just finished. Well, not literally at this moment, but you get what I'm saying. And my gosh, it is going to be quite the interesting review. I can definitely tell you that. If for no other reason than, what am I, 2 weeks ago, I was saying that it was a fun show and I enjoyed it and all that good stuff, and now I'm back to this. Now I am back to this. It didn't take me one damn episode before I was back to a point where, like, oh man, what are they doing? Anyhow, before I get off of this, I have a question. We all know that we saw the press release, WoW and NWA Power on the Wrestling Fast Channel. The Wrestling Channel, which is a fast channel for Roku. So for you Roku device owners that have taken the time to either look at it or watch it or whatnot. Now, when it first hit, I tuned in just to see, all right, well, how far back are they going? What's the lineup? I mean, going to be? They're going to rotate like a couple of hours block at a time, or whatever the case may be. And when I looked at it initially, I saw a bunch of WoW on there. I turned right to the channel. I was like, oh, there it was. So I was like, all right, they got their show. Now, I'm not going to sit here and watch it, but they have their show on there. Good for them. Same thing when I let the NWA roll through them, and I saw that appear, and they seem to be going back. Ooh, I guess as far as the lighting era had began. What was that? 2018 when they started. I mean, even now that the last one I saw had Jax Dane on it. We know he just passed not all that long ago. So they're clearly, in their archives, as one would expect them to be when they're on a 24-hour channel. But the question there is, has anybody seen WoW on it lately? Now, I am not saying that WoW does not air on the channel anymore. I'm sure that they do. It's just that every time that I go to it, all I've seen is NWA Power. The last few days that I've just randomly picked it up and turned it on, it's always been NWA Power. When I look at the guide, it's NWA Power and then there's no information. Now, of course, that block of no information could all be WoW. Which then leads you to the question why they don't have any information for it. Everybody else does. They got their name. They got who's in the match. If I'm not mistaken, they may even have the air date. Why would NWA Power have that and WoW doesn't? Beyond the fact that WoW doesn't seem to be bothered with stuff like that. But this is a legitimate question. If you have a Roku device of any sort, Roku TV, Roku box, Roku drive, whatever, and you're able to access that Roku channel, have you seen the wrestling channel? And if you've watched the wrestling channel, have you seen WoW on it? Because I don't want to assume, because I have a hard time believing that they just disappeared. It just feels, and I'll use those terms, it just feels like a lot of emphasis is going to the NWA as the wrestling product on that channel, opposed to WoW. And I guess as a point of bridging the two, who did I see on NWA Power not all that long ago? Why, Valentina, what's her last name? Rossi? Valentina Rossi. Now, somebody might be looking and say, who's that? But if you've been looking or listening to this podcast or watching WoW in general, then you would know her as the manager of the Alliance, Adriana Gambino, the one that doesn't manage her team at all. But here, she is challenging and wrestling for, challenging for titles and wrestling on their program. And the last one that was seen, or the last one that I saw, is her challenging for the NWA Tag Team Championships. So, what do we have going on there? I don't want to say it's another case of it makes it feel old, but we know that this is probably a little bit more current than what WoW is doing. The NWA has had a taping schedule that is not completely current. I mean, they will shoot months of TV. I just don't think that they shoot an entire year worth of TV and then get, all right, we're going to get back to you eventually. They will do a couple of months and they'll, start dishing those episodes out largely via X, if that's what it was on at the time. But if you go and check this, the latest women's tag team match out, Adriana Gambino, aka Valentina Rossi, is now the co-holder of the NWA Women's Championship with her partner Tiffany Neves. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, so I apologize, Tiffany. But there we go. Does that seem like she is destined to return to WoW? Just based on this alone? Very possible she could. Don't want to assume that she will not appear. However, it does seem like she has both oars in the water of the ocean of the NWA right now. It's a very real possibility that she will remain where she's at. And if she does, what happens to the Alliance? Do they continue on? She's the linchpin of that group. Not that she did anything for the group in general. And now this is a tale of two different personas. Valentina Rossi is a champion and an entirely different promotion. Adriana Gambino is a manager who doesn't manage. And it has been saddled with the idea of anytime I walk out here, I have to sit next to David McLean. And I have to sit there and talk about some stuff that has nothing to do with anything. If I'm a guessing man, she may not show back up. Because really, what was she doing there? Not a whole lot of nothing. That's what she was doing. A whole lot of nothing. So TVMA are the new tag team champions of the NWO, the new women's tag team champions. Congratulations, ladies. Now all we got to do is wait another couple of months. Imagine that. We got to wait another couple of months before we see whether or not she's going to show back up, because she's going to be on Wild's television as a pre-recorded act, which I hate when I hate that. I hate that. That is just months and months and months worth of TV. Whose dumbass idea was that? But anyway, yeah, months and months worth of TV just shot and sitting in the can, while they actually go off and do other things of real importance elsewhere. It just makes WoW, especially if you are aware of these other promotions and the other TVs and the other appearances that they have, it just makes WoW come off as, I'm hard to say even secondary. Makes them come off as third or fourth, maybe down the line, maybe fourth or fifth. And yet, we have the most prestigious championships in the world and the best women's wrestlers out there. Now, they've got some very good women's wrestlers. They just are buried underneath a lot of dumb decisions. That's probably the best way I could put it. And that's a good way to close this portion of news, views, and updates out. So we will take this break, and when we come back, go right off into the review. Stay tuned.
It's me, the most underrated star in the Midwest, the Phoenix Princess Aminah Belmont. August 30th, I'm going to be at C3 Ultimate Wrestling, where I face off against Renee Van Peebles? I like Pebbles. I'm going to say Pebbles. See, as you can see, I'm in the lab, all right? In the lab, going crazy, insanity. Yeah, putting in that work, something you know nothing about. So, Renee, can I call you Renee? Be prepared to fail and fall as I add another belt to my collection. Shasha.
And we are back. And it is time to go into the full review of WoW episode 347. That is season 3, episode 47 of the title, Class is in Session. The air date, June 21st, the chronological number 145. And it starts off with Pyro and the introduction of Top Tier coming into the arena. And David McLean doing his best to give them the accolades that they, I guess, so richly deserve. It's hard for me to even say that. And as he's doing that, of course, once they get into the ring, Nigel Zane calls Top Tier the longest reigning trios champions in television history, which is faint praise at best. I know it is his job to illustrate, highlight, and point out the things that they have accomplished and the work that they've done and how great they are, etc., etc. I understand that. But my problem here is they have no division. Top Tier being the longest reigning trios tag team champions means about as much as me saying I'm the longest reigning Street Fighter champion in the world on my block. Well, if I haven't left this block to go out and play some other gamers out there on the planet, it means nothing. It's only there to satisfy my personal ego. So Coach Campanelli comes out and cuts a promo at the start of the show, and I'm not going to say that Coach does not do a good job cutting the promo. I think that some of the elements of what she does, the little nuances, is kind of lost, probably potentially on her and the other members of WoW Creative, because for whatever reasons, they seem to like to have her want to call somebody like Katie Marie, for instance. Do you mind if I call you Kate? Like, she's done that a number of times. But again, with this audience, it's not like this is going anywhere. It's not giving her some new element to her persona or character, if you will. It doesn't add anything for her. If conversely, you look back way back in the day when Jericho was screwing up people's names on purpose, calling them Chris Angel and Greenberg and stuff like that. There was something built off of that. Which Coach Campanelli is just, hey, David, do you mind if I call you Davey? Stuff. And it's not, it's kind of like the BK Rhythms rap. It's fine, and it fills the time, but it's not going anywhere. It's not helping anything. It's not something that she's getting over, because it's not an artist to get it over to. It's just stuff to be said. So she basically cuts this promo, putting themselves over as they are your favorite tag team. You're booing us because you need to understand that we're the great, all the typical talking points of Top Tier. They've added in that we're your favorite tag team's favorite tag team, which again, if it makes you happy, that's the only way that I can really say anything positive in that light, whether that be kayfabe or reality. If it makes you happy, because I doubt that my favorite tag team would even know who Top Tier is, any of them. So they are a very, very, very confident team, and she delivers with confidence. But seriously, this does not feel like it's going anywhere. There is a problem with Top Tier. They have become a problem. They're not going anywhere. They're not doing anything. They don't offer anything. By the time they actually lose these titles, will you care? And I don't mean that in a sarcastic way. This is very serious. By the time they lose the titles, will you care about it? They don't do enough to make anybody look good as the champions. And that used to be a hallmark of a champion, that you can go in there, you can have a match with somebody, you can make them look good and still retain. Who is Top Tier made look good? Who has Top Tier stood across the ring from and gave you the impression that, man, if the circumstances were different, if they had a different stipulation, if they could just get another shot, who is top tier built to that point? They've built nobody. And I said this from the start. It's going to wind up breaking down into what we got. That's why I didn't like the trios tournament. I thought it was a bad idea because I knew they weren't going to be able to sustain it. And I don't even say that based on WoW. I say that based on just wrestling in general. You're not going to be able to sustain this because no one has. Trios, divisions, in America at least, do not garner a lot of attention. And it just winds up with, let's get the people who aren't doing anything important to jump into this division, and we'll just throw them into a bunch of different combinations just for the sake of having a team. And it doesn't show any more than it does right here in this match that's coming up. So they cut the promo, and then we go to the next segment. The next segment being the match, Top Tier versus Roxxy, Chantilly, Chella, and Brittney Bay. What is Brittney Bay doing part of this team? Why is she there? She has a team. She may be part of the only other trios team, as worthless as they may be. She may be part of the only other trios team that exists in WoW. But she left her group, Spring Break 24/7, to go and be a part of this. And you knew that the second that she was on, it was like, all right, well, they have no chance. The second you saw Brittney Bay's face getting ready to come out there, you knew immediately they have no chance. She's not been, and that's nothing to her, but she's not been portrayed as anything competitive in WoW. She's not been portrayed as a competitive act. Anytime you've seen her, she's gone out there and lost. And if she did win anything, I don't remember it. So it couldn't have been that important. So there is no shock or surprise here. They had one shining moment during the course of this match. So anyhow, the open was, this is a non-title match. They made that pretty evident and very clear. I wrote down, who cares? First off, if it's a non-title match, why would I care about this? But we're just going to fill the time, so fine. Bay is competent, I guess, but she's got work to do. I mean, there's really no other way that I could put it. She has work to do. It's kind of the same thing I said about a bunch of them. It's not that they are bad just all the way around. It's just that they are not ready for national television. And WoW as a company does them a disservice by putting them on national television when they aren't prepared for it. First off, you probably give some of them a false sense of bravado. Secondly, it makes the show ultimately look bad. I have said before, and I maintain the problem, one of the problems that WoW has is that when somebody on that show does something bad, miscalculated, mistimed, looks fake, whatever it is that you see there that creates some sort of issue in your mind, the average person just paints that picture across WoW. It doesn't apply to that person. It applies to everybody. And as long as that happens, well, first, as long as it's going to be, we're going to just get people, and as long as they look good and we can stick them on TV and they're competent in the moves, that issue is never going to go away. It's never going to go away. Because they're perfectly fine with it. They're fine with it. They're happy with it. Excuse me there. But they're fine with it. And they're not concerned about the concerns of, I guess, whatever fans that may exist. So, it is, wow, it just is what it is. It exists in its own little bubble, its own little universe, and that's probably not going to be anything different anytime soon. The match was largely placed on Chantilly Chella. Chella, amongst the, let's see, who's in there? Amongst the 6, probably 2 of the most experienced persons involved, if you include Glitter. So it wasn't really shocking that they were going to put the burden of selling on her. Although there was a spot in the match where I was like, that small package that was put on Coach looked like that could have hurt her. And I don't know which who would be taking the blame for that. Might be Coach, could be Chella. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend like I know who. Maybe a combination of the two. But fortunately, it didn't look like it didn't spike Coach's head into the mat. So good for them for that. But this was okay. But I go back to what I was saying at the beginning. At what point does top tier make anybody look like they would come close to offsetting the almighty top tier? So that you might be interested in seeing that person or team pursue them and their titles. Those titles have just been garnished for their outfits for months. And we're talking the TV timeline, not their shooting timeline. It's just there to be garnished for the outfits. I can't imagine that at this stage anybody would be really concerned or care about whether or not top tier loses them goddamn titles. I don't see that. Because no one's been placed in that position. And the few persons that you would think should be in that position, namely the Dojo Defenders and or Karakai and whoever she put with her, Xena Phoenix and whatever, you would think that they would be the ones like, okay, if anybody's going to get revenge or win or topple top tier and finally get it and all is right with the world and everybody be praised for it, you would think it would be them. They are the closest who've had it. Had a reason for it. But what wound up happening, top tier just beat them. Not just beat them, they beat them clean. So what? Candy Crush bit somebody's ear. Yeah, it was a cheap maneuver. But they still won. They didn't hold tights. They didn't use any outside interference or anything like that. They just won. So who cares? Who wins these things for them? They have not driven up any interest towards those championships or the idea of toppling top tier. And this match was no different. That's why I'm not really reviewing anything move for move and hole for hole. The one thing that I did like in here is that Roxxy came in and she got a chance to look strong for a few minutes. If that was something that they were trying to push, if that was a narrative that they were going for, like, okay, we're not going to move any championships, but let's make Roxxy look strong for the bulk of this match, well, that might be a different issue. But as soon as she came in like a house of fire, she pretty much tagged herself back out. And then they started to do the triple suplex spot where one team, somebody's trying to suplex another one, and then they stop it, and the next team member come in, and then they alternate. I'm like, even with that, Gloria Glitter didn't have to be saved from the suplex. She just stopped it herself. And then the match breaks down. And top tier and top tiers, Coach Campanelli and Gloria Glitter apply sharpshooters, and Brittney Bay taps out. Clean. There's nothing there. I'm sorry. There's nothing there. If you want to see that match, fine. Enjoy it. But there was nothing there for this. This match was just a match just to make top tier be top tier. And it feels like they're just on this never-ending road of we're the greatest tag team. It just feels like that. No one even feels close. Like we are in pursuit of this thing and we'll get them one way or the other. As I just said, the closest thing that we got to that, they pretty much polished off and moved on. I don't know what Wild's creative was looking to get out of this, out of having this division. I mean, honestly, I don't know the purpose of Top 10. And I had hopes for them when they first got together. I really did. But look at what they've done since that time. If you go back to the finish just before they got the championship, okay, so they won the final round of a nonsensical tournament because Wild does awful tournaments. They got a trophy that they broke over the back of somebody only to be gifted another one. Then that person that they broke the trophy over the back over proceeds to defeat them on at least 3 different occasions with 3 different sets of partners. And then when they come back off of their break, let's call it that, then Wild, for whatever reason, just decides that, oh, we had these belts made, here you go, because you deserve them. And then they just went on this run of beating up every loose-knit, halfway thrown together team that they could have put in front of them, which have basically been the same group of people. The Mites might get tossed in there, and Dojo defended. Anybody that had no chance of going after the tag team titles and Babyface was going to be up against them at some point in time. And that's what happened. All predictions came true. That it was just going to be a hodgepodge of names put together for no reason, just to accommodate having this championship, which they honestly they just need to deactivate them things, throw it away, and hopefully people forget about it. And if you're going to have a secondary championship, have one that actually means something. They could have been focusing this effort of Top 10 into the actual tag team division by now. They could have just operated off of a Freebird rule or something along those lines, but instead we got this. So this same move that allegedly has broken the legs of Tara Strike and put Ashley Blaze on the shelf is applied in the middle of the ring, and then they just tap out. Now, of course, that dangerous sharpshooter or Scorpion Deathlock, whichever one you prefer, which has been applied by experts over the course of 30 years. And unless they really sat down on it and really cranked that thing, you never saw anybody get their knees dislocated or bones broke or whatever the case would be. But in WoW, yes, it's the most deadliest move ever because Coach Campanelli does it. Now, she does a good sharpshooter. Not going to take that away from her or Glitter. They apply that thing great. Matter of fact, if you were going to ask me who does a better sharpshooter, Coach Campanelli or The Rock, I would go Coach Campanelli all day. She applies a far superior sharpshooter than The Rock ever has. It's just the idea that, whoa, this move just broke this person's legs so much to the point that we don't even know if she's ever coming back. Yeah. So that was that. Like I said, the second you saw Brittney Bay, you knew what was going to happen. And who was the one that tapped out in this match? Brittney Bay. McLean then insists immediately that Top Tier successfully defended the title. I wrote, wasn't this a non-title match? Did they not say that at the beginning? This is happening more and more often, where he is saying something that by their own accord doesn't exist. Is he not paying attention to it? Is he forgetting? And it's an edited show. I mean, yeah, you can leave the mistakes in if you want to make it feel more real. I've felt like that before. It's like, that's fine. But he has a lot of them on his own program. He's been having a lot of that. And I don't know if that's something that I would want to leave in there all the time. All it does for me is it makes me feel like he needs to step down from that. But I also think that he has to be self-aware in order to do it. And I don't think he's self-aware enough, nor wants to step down from that show for the benefit of the show. It's insane to me. I mean, at the very least, remember whether it's a title match or not. You got the papers right in front of you. Use them. But it does make me feel like everything that I said, which was more or less validated in a post by Stephen Dickey, he does too much. He does too much, whether you feel like that's out of ego or whether he feels like nobody else can do it but him. He does too much, and it shows. And if he doesn't begin to recognize that at some point in time, it's not going to get any better. It's probably only going to get worse. So anyway, before we move on, let's just make the statement. Top Tier doesn't even have to pretend to cheat. And that's sad. They don't even pretend to try and cheat. And they don't get anybody over. I'll even go so far as to say not just they don't get anybody over, they don't try. Next segment. Santana Garrett has a backstage promo. I like her, but she is not a strong promo. I am sorry, Santana, because there's a possibility she might hear me say this. I am so sorry. But she's not a strong promo. She just one of two things is happening there. Either she isn't a strong promo or WOW has been very restrictive of what she says and strips her down to the bare bones. Her entire point behind getting a title shot is largely built on, and I'm a former WOW champion. Okay. And that's it. It's like, I'm a former WOW champion. That's it. Every babyface here is so weak in their promo and presentation. They're just as generic as they could possibly be. And once they have whatever one quality that is applied to them, that's almost the only thing that they'll ever become. And in this case, it's moved off of, well, at least for a little while, because I think they brought it up later in the show, if I remember my notes correctly. They moved it off of doing it for her father to, I'm a former WOW champion. That was the entire reason that she had the promo and that got her the title shot to begin with. It was that, and then, all right, well, we'll give you a shot. I don't know if she has it in her or not. I would really like to see her in a different environment where she can actually cut a promo and express who she is and what her motivations are. They had a chance to do it right there, and that was the best they got. And then I'm going to assume that WOW told her to say this, where she's like, and the crowd is right when they chant, Samantha's not smart. Samantha's not smart. When have they ever done that? I mean, seriously, when have they ever chanted that? I don't remember that ever happening. Samantha's not. When did this take place? And they certainly can't expect that, well, if you say this on TV, it'll catch on. I mean, this is like somebody in middle school just booking their fantasy wrestling thing, and they just happen to have a millionaire backing them up. I mean, you can't expect your audience to be that stupid. When have they done this? I mean, maybe they have, and maybe I just overlooked it. I don't know, but I've never heard that crowd in unison chant, Samantha's not smart. In fact, you barely hear them chant, cheer, or boo anybody. I'm sure they do everyone. I mean, I've heard them do certain things, and every once in a while, just because somebody's off to the side cueing them to do it, but we really don't get some sort of designated chance towards one person or the other. They're just back there clapping. They got their thunder clappers and they just clap. And that's pretty much it. But that was the basis of this promo. Is like that Wow just wrote it because they believe that this is what a babyface should say. I guess, and it sounds terrible. The next segment is the promo for Scout Parker being next. Her and her match. Segment after that, Scout Parker herself and Kara Kai. McLean starts opening this match, doubling down on Top Tier being successful in their title defense. Say it again. Are the notes not there? Because one or the other is wrong. Either the ring announcer was wrong or David McLean was wrong. One of them is wrong. But why leave that in the show? Zayn talks about how impressive their reign has been, which, again, Top Tier's championship reign, who cares? All due respect to the members of Top Tier. I'm not saying that they don't have potential, in-ring talent, this, that, or the other. But what I will say about them is that they have not been presented as a quality team, nor have they done their job, in my opinion, as a heel faction. They have not helped anybody get over. They have not got anybody to be interested in those championships whatsoever. It's just, we have titles. And they're happy about just having the titles. But in any case, this is Scout Parker versus Kara Kai, who is now a singles act, I guess. And Zayn brings up Top Tier, taking out Kara Kai's partners. And now she's focused on her singles career. I wrote down, okay, so she's just giving up on getting even with Top Tier. That's pretty much evident. He might as well have just said they beat her ass so bad that she just decided to quit and go to singles competition because she couldn't beat them. She couldn't handle it. Get me away from Top Tier because I cannot take them on. Ugh. They also attempt to justify Sprout Greens being on the last leg of her protest. I wrote down, why would this woman still be employed? I mean, why would they even talk about that if they weren't going to have some footage of it or something? I could see if they had her walking around with her own cameras and she was sending that in while she was on protest, but it's been literally a case of she was there to win one week, she was there to lose one week, then she just disappeared, and then it's been, oh, well, she's not here because she's out protesting. She's protesting this one. I think she's on the oil rig now. I was like, what does that have to do with her job at WoW? It doesn't make the person that's in charge of that thing look and sound like an idiot to me that I would hire this person. But I'm not going to be concerned about whether they produce for me. I'm just going to hire them and let them off for months to go do what it is that they want to do, including Foxy Fierce, including Spice, who apparently is on like the longest college graduation party tour ever. How is Sprout Greens justifiably employed? Who knows? Those and other mysteries are never to be solved in the WoW universe. So this particular match is not anything grand or important. I mean, we all know that you have to have some filler matches in here throughout the course of the show. And I would say out of the 4 matches, 3 of them were exactly that. They were just filler matches. I know they probably would not want to categorize the opening match as such, since it was allegedly a championship match, but it didn't mean anything. There was no feud. There was a cold match, and there was nothing wrong with that. And same thing here. Scout Parker and Kara Kai is a match to be had, but there's no existing rivalry, storyline, angle. There was nothing that concluded and or started off from this. So let's go with some of the positives. I have stated on a couple of occasions that I like Scout Parker. I know there are some people that are around me when I watch this, like, oh man, look at her, so stupid. What's got there in the khakis, and she's doing this, that, and the other, and blah blah blah. And was she some kind of eco warrior? Blah, that those things are just common to come up, which is why I've always gone back to you can get the gimmick over if she had the chance to get the gimmick over. And in my estimation, she hasn't had the opportunity to do that. It's always been a case of we have to speak about it for Scout Parker rather than Scout Parker speaking about it for herself. But I think, or at least she appears to be more comfortable as Scout Parker opposed to being ice cold. I like the outfit better than I did the ice cold outfit, honestly. I know I brought this up at some point. I don't know if she's filled, bulked up or filled out or whatever the case may be, but just in that, and it may just be the outfit. She just doesn't look as tiny to me anymore. And it could be the people that she's up in the ring against because they're comparable to her size. But this match made me feel like a nice, I don't want to say beginner indie match. That's not the right way, and that comes off wrong. But it was like a nice little, match that I would have seen on the indies. Not necessarily overly smooth, but it wasn't bad. It was just a match that kind of filled the time. And it ended with Karakai getting a roller. It felt, it felt more like it was a competition. For as brief as it was. Because it wasn't some long-term back and forth, you do this and I do that type of match. It was relatively short. Kai did not get some sort of big finisher in on Scout. Scout attempted to go for a move that she had utilized in previous weeks to finish off a match, specifically Valentina Diamante. What happened to her? She went for a splash. She missed the splash. So, there was some of that. It felt like there was a little bit of a struggle towards the end. Scout was going for the leg. I like that. I like her application of the figure four leg lock. I knew that the second that she did that, they were going to bring up a Ric Flair reference. Because, you can't have a move like a figure four leg lock take place in a while unless you bring up the person that, oh, yeah, she just made Flair happy or whatever. So, but I like her application of the move. Probably not something that she would utilize often. She seems to have, short legs, so maybe that's not something that she would do a lot of times. But she went after the legs. That was another thing that I like. And Kai sold it. And then when we get to the cloverleaf, Kai was still selling the leg right before that took place. And then she counters it, rolls her up out of the Texas cloverleaf, and she gets the pin. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Kai gets a win. Now, she got it over somebody whose win-loss record in WoW at this point is iffy. We can no longer say that Scout Parker just does not win. She does win here and there. So it wasn't necessarily over somebody who just loses and loses and loses and loses all the time. And honestly, I would have gone into this saying Scout Parker was going to. I did not think Karakai was going to pull that off. But I'm also happy to be wrong there. I am happy to be wrong, and I will accept that. I would have liked Scout Parker to win because, like I said, I like Scout Parker. But that doesn't mean I dislike Karakai. So there you go. Of course, as this match was going on, the commentators addressed at some point that the Fab Four got fines, and Dave McClain gets the count of the title reigns of Miami Sweet Heat wrong. Like I said, this is happening more and more often. He said if they win, they'll become 4-time champions. And apparently off camera, Zayn corrected him. He's like, oh, no, he's at 5. And then they made some joke about it. And, okay, yeah, everybody's going to screw up. That's going to happen. But this is happening a lot out of him. It's happening more often than it needs to, where he's not getting his own information correct. So I don't know. It comes back to me saying that I think that McClain has to acknowledge that there's an issue with his presence. I'm not going to say just his commentary, his presence as a commentator who is actively in control of the show. So, neither one of these ladies, as much as I like them, Karakai and Scout Parker, neither one of them, as much as I personally may like them, have not given the audience a reason to care. That is the takeaway. It was a nice match. It was, I thought that it was fine for what it was. But as far as Scout Parker is concerned, as far as Karakai is concerned, her entire existence has been built around, I'm tired of top-tier bullying people, and now she's pretty much dropped out of that. So whatever her reasonings for being there were, it doesn't seem to exist now. And then Scout Parker hasn't said anything. So fair is fair. They were nice, but there's no reason to care here. Sorry. There just wasn't. WoW gives their website spot. Good for them. That was the next segment. Segment after that is the match. The alliteration, magnificent Miranda Mirage versus Chainsaw with Daisy Lane. The very first thing that I wrote here isn't Mirage a heel? She had been hanging out with heels. She had been associated with Siren the Voodoo Doll. And then, for whatever reason, like, oh, well, heavy metal and magic, they go hand in hand. Well, that tag team didn't last but like a week or two. So now she's in here by herself. I did not have high expectations for this match at all. I didn't think it was going to be terrible, largely based on the idea of what I said about Chainsaw when I first saw Chainsaw, is that because of the gimmick, she doesn't necessarily have to be smooth. Now, she has to be efficient in the ring. She has to be domineering. She's got to have her psychology down. But I don't think that she has to necessarily be some sort of smooth operator in the ring. Mirage, on the other hand, probably needs to be, but she is not in a place yet where she can do that. She just isn't. She falls into the same category as a lot of people that we've talked about on this show before. It's not necessarily that they are hopeless from top to bottom, but it is that they are not ready for the spot that they're in. While as a program, regardless of what crutch David McClain and anybody else that's in that company seem to want to lean on, and that crutch is titled, "We're the only women's wrestling show in the world." Now, that's not how they phrase it, but that's more or less what it comes off as. We're the only women's wrestling program with a global footprint. I mean, it's a nice thing to say, but ultimately, what does that mean? Because it's not like there isn't any other women's wrestling out there in the world. We just talked about some of them during the news, views, and updates. And the existence of women's wrestling around WOW is there. They can try to ignore it. They can try to act like it doesn't exist or whatever the case may be, but it's there. And as such, those other places utilize, generally speaking, talented people. People that can carry the match, people that can do what they need to do. Now, there's people in WoW, there's a good chunk of them, that are perfectly capable. They get kind of held back. And the ones that aren't held back seem to be the ones that WoW kind of created for the purposes of being on WoW's TV. I do want to say this for Miranda Mirage. She does have, I'm repeating myself, that there is some level of potential there. And I cannot, in good conscience, just dismiss that. She probably isn't ready to have any matches beyond this show. And at times I question, is she really ready for, the matches that are on the show? She's another person who is a gimmick, and that's pretty much where it starts and where it stops. I don't know if we've heard her say 2 words on this show. To get who Miranda Mirage is, not really a fan of the alliteration. We got to have that with Vicious Veronica Vroom and Magnificent Miranda Mirage. I'm not really a fan of that, but that's his product, his show. He can do what he wants. But yeah, for me to say that she doesn't have anything would be unfair. There's glimpses of competence there, but she's also in an environment that she's probably not being told, hey, or at least not to any great degree, you might want to try this, or maybe you can change that. This will work better for you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They try to sell Mirage as a magician, and we've got their whole backstory again. Mirage isn't explaining it. David McClain is, which is a problem. The talent have to be able to explain their own stuff. Yes, the commentators should back it up, but the talent need to be able to explain their own stuff. This is simply a gimmick. We've not seen her do anything. We've not seen any backstage segments where she actually performs a trick. The things that we've seen her do, you could pretty much go to your local magic shop and pull off yourself after maybe a couple of days worth of practice, if that. It's just, it's just a gimmick. Like a lot of them are. They're just a gimmick. McClain talks about Chainsaw's past, which is an absurd storyline. And then he has the brilliant thing. She has the little doll. I like to call her Little Daisy Lane. I was like, well, that was very creative. Chainsaw, who apparently had been locked in the basement for years on end, and nobody called defects on her father, I guess. I don't know. So, the match itself, much like the match that preceded it, fine, but not a lot of stuff that's attached to it. Don't know why they're really having it. Is Mirage a babyface now? We can't tell. She's more or less the sympathetic figure in this match. But what's going to happen the next time we see her? Are they going to have her in the babyface role, or are they going to just push her off into being a heel again? There's a point in the match where Chainsaw does the leg drop on Mirage, and she grabs at Mirage's nose, which is, I don't know why that would be the move that she would choose to do. And Zane on the commentary is like, she's ripping away at her face. I'm like, seriously? She's ripping away at her face, this nose pinch that she's doing? That is yet another reason why I'm like, injury angles and times when they try to sell somebody being hurt or viciously being attacked and stuff like that, it just doesn't work in a while. Because the visuals do not match whatever it is that they're trying to sell you on commentary, the visuals don't match it. Mirage tried to do a preceding the leg drop that she got. She did what they used to call a matrix move. and tried to kick Chainsaw in the face. And yeah, it was, she did the Matrix and she got her foot up there and quote kicked Chainsaw. It just didn't look good on camera. It came up kind of slow. So it didn't really have the impact that it probably needed to have. And then we got to the spot where like, oh, she's ripping her face. Like, yeah, okay, whatever. We got a crucifix spot that was botched. And Mirage either was hurt or she was pissed or both that it happened. She just pounded the mat. This is when Chainsaw shoots her in, goes for a clothesline. Mirage tried to swing around and get on her shoulders, and she couldn't quite make it. Which again, in fairness to her, if it was a case of her beating on the mat because she was mad at herself for messing it up, hey, it happens, and at least it shows me that she cares. If nothing else, it just shows that she cares. But they picked up where they left off. Give them credit for that. Chainsaw gets her up, doesn't miss a beat, hoists her up on the shoulders, and then she just goes for the spot that I'm assuming that they were going to do anyway. Rams her into the corner. Now, one of the things that I didn't like the stomach claw necessarily, nor the hit that followed it. But I did like Mirage's escape of the foot choke. That was, I don't know if I've seen that one before, where Chainsaw has the foot choke on Mirage in the corner. Mirage starts to climb backwards up the ropes. And when she gets enough leverage, she just shoves the foot over the top. And then she has Chainsaw in a vulnerable position. I thought that was a good spot. I didn't necessarily want her to follow it up with her own foot choke in the opposite side with Chainsaw. But we got that, and then she does her little magician bow, and she tries to get Chainsaw in the corner. Chainsaw catches the foot, and then she decides that now's a good time just to take a bite out of her ankle or her shin or thigh, whatever. Not her thigh, her shin. Which didn't make any sort of sense. I like, she's got a boot on. And it looks like a boot with a kick pad in it. So I know that Chainsaw's got some good chompers there, but I don't know if it's quite that strong that she's going to get through that. So she limps herself over to the ropes. Daisy Lane hoists Mirage's throat across the top, which opens Mirage up for a choke slam. Boom, 1, 2, 3. There we go. That was the end of the match. And then Daisy Lane had to get her little extracurricular fun into it. So substitute Alexa Bliss got her time in the sun. Yet another persona that's on the show that makes WoW come off as secondary, because I can promise you that anybody that's looking at WWE's television and then comes back and sees them two is exactly, they're going to think that. Who's she trying to be, Alexa Bliss? The other side of that coin is people that look at it and have no concept of wrestling, and they're like, who's she trying to be, Harley Quinn? They don't take Daisy Lane for who she is. So make of that what you will. They then leave out of the match, and we get a little promo for Santana Garrett and the Classmaster. We get the Classmaster doing her normal Classmaster stuff, pointing at her head like, I'm a genius. I are smart. Then we go to Sibley Scoles, where she says she's in the locker room. What is this about her saying that she's in the locker room? She ain't in no locker room. It's clearly a backdrop. And if it were the locker room that's with a backdrop on it, then why have the backdrop? It looks like the interview segment or the interview section that it should be. I don't know why she's insisting on saying we're in the WoW locker room. I'm sure I've asked this the previous time that I had a podcast. Like, I really, really want to know if somebody's just instructing her, like, okay, say that you're in the locker room and we'll do and read this stuff. because it doesn't make any sense to me. It's very evident that on camera, regardless, let's be clear, regardless of whether it's set up in a locker room or not, if you had the backdrop in front of the lockers, it doesn't visually come across as a locker room. So it just makes her sound like she's just saying something that isn't true. If it were true, I'm trying to give it the benefit of the doubt. But why? It seems very evident that as far as people watching this show are concerned, this would not be considered a locker room. And she's still doing the same thing. She's looking away off camera and, and who knows what. Then we cut to Miami Sweet Heat, who are sitting by the anvil cases. And more or less their promo's like, well, we know how to play dirty. And then Laura says she has an idea and they cut away. So I guess we have to wait another whole week to find out what this idea is. I'm assuming that they're going to turn around and say, we want a no disqualification match or the soccer rocks on a pole or something else stupid. Scoles then pitches to a video package for the 4-way for the number 1 contendership for the Wild Championship. I was like, why are we doing this again? Why are we doing this again? Like, it's how many times are we going to do this? And then it's the same rotation. 2 of which were just going after the tag team titles 3 weeks ago? So we didn't win at that, so let's just split. Now we'll both instantaneously go after the Wild Championship. 2 weeks before this, Princess Ozzy was crying and complaining in the ring like, everybody cheats me. David, do something. What is happening here? Are there no other contenders that this place has? Didn't build anybody up? Not one person? And here's what they have. It looks like with Ozzy, they potentially may have had the wrong promo. If you notice, when Ozzy spoke, she's like, tonight I'll show everyone why I'm the comeback queen and I want that title, which is why I said I don't think that they got the right promo. It didn't sound like a promo that was setting up for something down the line. It sounded like a promo that she was doing for right then, or like they just recycled one. Like, that promo's good enough, just use it. And the voiceover. Who wrote this? The Wild Championship, the most prestigious title in the world, a title that a lot of people had, but no one was able to keep until now. I'm like, okay, no one keeps the championship. They make it sound like the Classmaster has been a champion for 3 or 4 years or something. She's had it a couple of months. I mean, give me a break. Like, they can write what they want, or they can use the AI to write what they want for them. But it's another one of those things that, as long as I can do it with inflection, you will not look at it any deeper than what we want you to. Just take it for what it is. And then we go to the next person there, Genesis. My gosh. I am so tired of this now. I am tired of this and her. I like Genesis, but god damn it. It is the same promo over and over and over again. And if she has to find some kind of goddamn way to shoehorn Exile into everything, I'm tired of being ignored. I'm not going to be exiled anymore. I was like, change the tune already. I mean, come on. When was the last time people even saw Exile? The group is over with. Get over it. Move on. And I'm sure they probably did the same thing with her that they did with Princess Oz. Just grabbed some random promo and stuck it into the show. So none of these things mean anything towards the actual match that they're about to have. But they have got to give her some different material. And why is she in this? How many times does she need to lose? It makes you feel like, what is the point of having a number one contenders match to begin with? First off, Santana Garrett just came out and said, I'm a former world champion that deserves a shot, and she got a shot. Now we got two people who weren't even in contendership for a championship shot, Tormenta and Princess Aussie, who just immediately thrown into this after Princess Aussie lost to Genesis a week ago or whenever it was. Paola Mayfield, what's up with that? She doesn't speak anyway. So Abilene Maverick does a promo for her and says that she deserves a shot, whatever. Same thing. And then you got Tormenta, who closes it out, and she starts giving her promo in Spanish. Another case of there's a lot of conviction there. You need to be looking at the screen if you're not bilingual. But what is this match for? I mean, we know what it's for, technically. But why? And Tormenta's things like, it's probably, I'm not going to say probably, it was a basic promo. Just like everybody else's promo. Like, I'm going to finish each and every last one of you off because I'm strong and I'm brave and I'm Tormenta. I'm like, all right. That's pretty much what it said. So, I don't know. So this closes out that little clip within the segment, and then we go back to Sibley Scoles, and Scoles starts promoting for, the main event, and she asks, will Santana make her father proud? And this is exactly what I'm talking about when I say that Santana Garrett gets dwindled down to just two core characteristics. The characteristic of I'm a former wild champion and making her dad proud. And Scoles was really bad in this one. She was bad into her eyes, or she needs to wear some shades or something, or somebody needs to stop distracting her when she's back there doing her interview segment. Her eyes are constantly away from the camera. I don't know if it would bother me as bad as it does if I thought that she was brand new at it. But she ain't. She's not brand new at this. So what is it that is distracting her or getting her eyes off of the camera where she's not looking at this thing? What is going on there? Yeah. We go to the Wild Be Yourself spot, which ends on the Classmaster, which I just thought was complete irony. So we're going to talk about being yourself, and you got this knucklehead on the screen and a schoolgirl outfit and cap and gown and walking around with a book that says PhD in the Wild Women of Wrestling. That's being yourself. Oh, boy. Next segment, they advertise for next week, which will be Xena Phoenix versus Goldie Collins. So I guess Collins and Jinx, she'll probably be there in the corner, I assume. They didn't have anybody else for Xena Phoenix to go in and tap out. Or at least we assume that she's going to tap her out. And then we go to the main event of the evening. Santana Garrett versus the Classmaster with Samantha Smart. McLean starts this by saying that having a four-way is the only way to determine the number one contender. I wrote why. What exactly is the debate? For what reason, other than you just want to have one, did we need to have a four corners match to determine the new number one contender? I mean, because by my eyes, at least two of them shouldn't be there at all. Genesis has had opportunity after opportunity, regardless of what her promo has said. I'm tired of being ignored. I deserve a shot. She's had shots. She's had multiple shots. She's had multiple opportunities that she's come up short in. Move on. Mayfield had shots. She lost. Move on. Princess Ozzy, okay, her qualifying thing is that she's a former Wild champion, but she just lost to Genesis. Regardless of what, at least Genesis did cheat. Give her that much. At least she cheated to get her victory. So she could be a legitimate heel there. But why is Ozzy in this thing? I'm pretty sure I've mentioned something to the fact that Tormenta and Ozzy, they have just juggled back and forth. Because this isn't the first time that they've done this with them. We go after the titles. Okay, we didn't succeed in winning the tag team titles. Time for us to split and then go after the singles title. We didn't succeed in that, so time for us to pair back up and go back after the tag team titles. Well, we came up short in that, so let's go back after the singles title again. They need some talent there. If this is what what they're forced to do, that you don't have anybody else, that you haven't built anybody else to be able to assume this position. They've had months to try to get somebody into this spot. But since no one in WoW is over to begin with, it's just a waste of time. McLean recaps how smart it was for Samantha Smart to cheat, basically, to retain the championship. When the referee who's knocked out scooted himself over so he can make sure that his pocket was available for her to get the keys out of it. Like, that was smart. Now, again, keep in mind, David McLean isn't just a commentator. He's a guy that's making the rules and makes the punishments, makes the fines, and all that stuff. But apparently that means nothing in this environment. So, there's none of that. He just reverts to being regular old David McLean. I'm just a good old commentator. Gosh darn it. I have no ability to change anything here. What do you mean? And, of course, this match is refereed by the same referee that is screwed up over and over. Why is he not managing? Why is he refereeing these main events? I think at this point, he would be classified as a problem. If this were real, if we were going to take this in the universe of WoW being legitimate, you would think that they were like, we might need to get us a different referee for this one because he doesn't seem to be capable of not causing a problem. But anyhow, we won't go into that. Let's go into the match in and of itself. So, the 6'2" Classmaster, because, that's her only real qualification for being a wrestler, that she's tall. Classmaster doesn't really wrestle dominant. It's like she wants to just wrestle like everybody else. Even though the narrative that WoW tries to put out there is that she's 6'2". She's this dominant force. And then the very first thing that we get is the lockup between Santana Garrett and Classmaster going back and forth like they're even in strength. Like, why is this happening? Shouldn't Classmaster be able to overpower her? But that didn't take place. They jockey back and forth, shove each other around and all that good stuff like that. Now, this is the same person in the Classmaster, mind you. This is the same person who, when she locked up with the Beast, it was like, oh, look at that Balor's strength. And, and they were slowly moving each other around and all that stuff like that. But here, Santana Garrett's hanging in with her. I don't know what it is that was going on in this match, but it just had a couple of things that just bothered me. I like Santana Garrett, but there's a few things here that bothered me. That being one of them. I thought the selling point here was that she was big and strong. It didn't feel like it. So we got that. And then we got like the first point of Classmaster showing how nimble she is. Now, that lockup went around for a while, up until the last lockup met Classmaster with an arm drag and toss her down. Then she gets whipped into the ropes and she does the flare flip over the ropes, walks to the middle so that she can do the split. Now, that in and of itself probably wouldn't have been that bad, but they devalued their own spot minutes later. And that bothered me. Like, there was no reason. First off, Classmaster shouldn't be flipping over the top ropes in the first place if she's, this monster wrestler. But that's her decision to make. Whatever. So Santana Garrett comes in, charges, rather than block or punch back or whatever the case would be. I mean, again, this is everything that they've built the Classmaster to be. And I use built very loosely. But this is everything that they've told you that she is. Well, this is the 6'2" Classmaster. It is the only thing that she has going for her as far as why I was concerned, that she's tall. Why is she trying to duck to get out of Santana Garrett's way? And why was a split necessary to do it, other than the fact that I need to be able to show people on TV that I can do the split because it looks cool? So she does the split and tries to sweep the leg of Santana Garrett by swinging in, and then she gets kicked in the mouth and she goes down. That entire segment, because it basically was a means to get her onto the floor so she could do the Fit Finley spot of pulling the apron up and then trapping her so she can beat up on her a little bit. That entire segment probably could have been done the same way if she had been clotheslined over the top rope. Santana Garrett gets a running start, tries to catch her, and then same rules apply. But we had to get the split in there. I'm sure that was probably the primary reason that they did that. So now they're on the floor. And I'm going to give Classmaster credit where it's due now, because, I don't give her a lot of it, especially once I found out that she actually does have a promotion called Butt Wrestling, and then I saw her wrestling in goddamn watermelon juice or whatever it is that they was doing. So, I mean, she got like a really good forearm shot on Santana Garrett, and I was like, okay, good. Not that I want to see Garrett beat up, but I'm saying that at least she tried to make it look and sound convincing. So they're out on the floor for a little bit, having their little back and forth. Of course, the front row fans are giddy as they could possibly be. You got some kind of paying attention and some just goofing off. We're not going to go through this thing move by move and, the entire day. We're going to bring up the selling points of the match, one of which we talked about foreshadowing in the last episode, right? Talking about, there's no way they can use the Roxxy. They'll be fined and disqualified. They use it. They talked about that all episode. Now, they didn't talk about this particular thing all episode, but it was just odd that they brought it up. McLean brings up that it was 2 weeks ago that Garrett was a thorn in the side of Paola Mayfield. And I wrote, she was? When did this happen? 2 weeks ago. A thorn in the side of Paola Mayfield. And that was about as random a comment as it could possibly be. Considering the fact that being the thorn in the side means that Paola Mayfield won and she got the title shot, it just seemed like a stupid thing to say. And at that point, I was like, okay, what am I expecting and when is it going to happen? I looked. I tried. I was like, okay, let me see. Maybe I forgot one. Maybe I forgot a match that they had and I'm just overlooking it. And I didn't find anything. It was the same match that probably all of us saw. It was Santana Garrett, Paola Mayfield. Mayfield wins. So what thorn in the side is she? It's about as dumb as when they had Adriana Gambino wrestle and defeat Princess Aussie on her own. But then the following week, like, I need a bodyguard. And it wasn't like Aussie came close. She lost. So here we got this. Like, what sense does that make? We're back to this. WoW has migrated. They had one good episode 2 weeks ago, and we've migrated back to this. We've migrated back to just revisionist history. How exactly was Paola Mayfield a thorn, or Garrett, I should say, a thorn in the side of Mayfield? How? So and again, this was out of nowhere. It was just a statement for a statement's sake. So you knew at that point, like, they're setting up for something. I've watched WoW long enough to know at this point that they're setting up for something. Classmaster applies a pretty impressive Boston crab. But I also don't necessarily care for her going for these submission holds. Not that she can't apply them. She applied it very well. But I am going off of the narrative of what WoW has told me. And the narrative that WoW has told me is that she's some big bruiser and taller than everybody else, which I guess in their world equates to being strong. And she just like submission move after submission move. Balls and crab didn't work. All right, so we'll go for STF. So it just didn't seem like it was good for her. It's like we're just going to apply the move because I know the move to apply. And we're back to, you know, I know my eyes have wandered off onto the crowd a number of times, and there was somebody out in the front row like, come on, you get out of there. I was like, where are they hiring these people from? They're just hiring extras and sticking them out on the front row, because I have a very difficult time believing that any of them people out there were that far gone or that deep into the match that they were like, come on, Santana. Let's all clap for her. What are thunderclappers? So let's get to something important now, because I'm pretty sure if you watched this match, you knew exactly what was coming along. So there's a part that Samantha Smart gets to play. She gets to do the heel manager thing, although I don't think that she did an effective job of it with her yardstick. She didn't really get a chance to choke Santana Garrett out. She went over there and intervened, but she didn't really get a chance to choke. And I forgot to mention that during the voiceover, they tried to play this up like, well, she won the Classmaster because of Samantha Smart's constant interference. Like, does she really constantly interfere? Yes, she's interfered. But is it a constant thing? There are times where Classmaster would have won whether Samantha Smart was there or not. But that's not the point. So we get to the end of the match. Here's the important part. We have Garrett who catches the Classmaster in the corner, right? With her signature Muda handspring, we'll call it that. Well, it's Garrett handspring. She does the handspring right into the elbow. She sees Samantha Smart on the floor with the book in her hand, and she drop kicks Samantha Smart in the mouth or the face. Basically does the Van Daminator of some description with the book instead of a chair. And it's kind of a wasted thing for this audience, because it's not like there's some sort of great pop for it other than what they've generated. And I'm also, I'll say 85% positive that they're just using sound sweetener for some of this stuff. Not that that's here or there, just a random observation. So she goes down, which then makes Garrett turn into a boot to the gut by the Classmaster, who then catches her with the big DDT. Remember when I had mentioned a couple of podcasts ago that WoW has not done a really good job of establishing a great deal of finisher moves? Well, this is one of those. Now, the DDT in and of itself is a big move, or at least it used to be. And she did finish someone with a DDT before. I can't remember if it was Garrett or not. Actually, I don't even think it's that important. All we need to know is that she's done it. So she hits her. She connects with the DDT. She goes for the cover. Garrett kicks out. Yay! And comments, oh, yes, she kicked out. So, there goes the non-bias right there. Garrett gets one out at the last minute. This probably would have been a bigger thing if we had seen Classmaster perform some sort of move that was regarded as her finish, but we don't know what the hell her finish is. Is it her expulsion that she hoists up on his shoulders and just fling you down? Is it a DDT? Is it a big boot? She's even used a choke slam at some points. We don't know because she's never stuck with anything. So it's hard to train the audience that this was a big deal to begin with. Especially if you're a wrestling fan now and you don't regard the DDT as a finish. Okay, yeah, she got a win with a DDT prior. Good for her. But, whatever. I also forgot to mention one other thing because I did, and I want to go back to it. I did say earlier that when Classmaster went over the ropes and she did the split, that she devalued her own spot. You remember me saying that? In the course of this match, we're going to go back just a little bit here. In the course of this match, we got a double split spot. Now, that was Garrett being caught by the Classmaster and being forced into a split. Catches the leg. Classmaster sweeps it out from underneath her, so Garrett has no alternative but to fall down into a split position. I'm just saying that she has no alternative because that's how they portrayed it. Right? So Garrett is on the mat in split position. This is following after her leg is swept out from underneath her for attempting a eat defeat. And then Classmaster tries to kick Garrett, and she catches her foot and then sweeps it out. So Classmaster has no choice but to fall into split position. This probably would have meant more if we hadn't seen a split from the Classmaster not 2-3 minutes ago. That is what I meant by she devalued her own spot. If you were going to do something like this to where it's going to, quote, pop the audience, then don't do a halfway version of it a little bit prior to this. Yes, I get it. You can do a split. Bravo. And I'm sure that she felt great being able to show people that I can do a split. And it looks great on camera. It didn't work for the match. At that point, one of those spots needed to be removed. It didn't work for the match. It didn't offer up anything other than a quick pop, and you can't get a pop off of it twice. It's like, go back to the tag team match that I enjoyed with Swag and Pink versus Tormenta and Ozzy. I went through those dives in sequence. Like, the first dive was great. By Tormenta to the floor. Second dive was good. By Ozzy to the floor. The third dive, you expecting it now. Because it's been done. In succession. Didn't mean it wasn't performed well, but it's been done. It doesn't really work in succession like that. And keeping people into it is just a series of big moves for the sake of having a series of big moves. So that double split spot, I was not a big fan of because I'd already seen the split that the Classmaster did. So it was no, wow, she can do a split. You didn't even get that element of it. So back to where we were, where Garrett got caught with a kick in the guts. She got caught with a DDT. She kicks out of the DDT. And keep in mind, the audience is just tossing the clappers, right? Here's another thing I'm going to say in fairness to Classmaster, and I hate that name. I still hate it. She sold the Rising Shine well. She's probably one of two people that have been able to do that and get it relatively down pat in terms of timing. Garrett tries to go for it, and this is the sequence that I'm like, all right, what are they even attempting to do? Because I won't go as full angle alert, but it's pretty damn close. All right, so rear waist lock by Garrett on the Classmaster. Tries to do the roll up. We've seen this spot happen a number of times. She never succeeds with the roll up. She rolls off. She kicks back up, and then she catches her with a forearm. Boom. Right? Classmaster at least didn't have to stand there and look like an idiot and wait for her to come around like Paola Mayfield made her do. She catches her with the forearm shot, and then she kicks Classmaster to the side of the head with a super kick. Classmaster, and maybe the most unnatural bump that she probably would take, turns herself around to make sure that she flops down to her belly. Because you always see people take a super kick and fall down to their stomach. You knew then, I was like, why would she do that? I mean, that was the absolute first thing that hit my mind. I was like, that's an odd way for her to do it. Why would she make sure she turned herself around and fall down to her stomach? And if we're going with the logic that has been established in WoW, the super kick should have been something that Garrett would have gone for a finish on. I mean, gone for the cover. We just saw her win a match not all that long ago, regardless of what happened in between, because I'm positive they clipped out something between the super kick and the actual pin. Regardless of what happened in between that, on television, the super kick finished off Reina Del Rey. On television, that is what the narrative was. That was the story. Super kick, boom, 1, 2, 3. So there's really no reason that Garrett would not have gone for a finish here. We have seen her win with the super kick. But rather than to do that, because we just saw Classmaster flop down to her stomach, rather than to do that, I'm going to go for this move that has never won me a single match. Go for the last chancery. And then you knew right then, it's like, okay, that's why she did it. That's why she took the kick to the side of the head. I'm going to turn. I'm going to flop down and make sure that I'm on my stomach in the middle of the ring so that we can get this across. So Garrett sees her on the stomach. She goes in. She gets the chancery, and she hooks it in tight on Classmaster. Classmaster does not even look like she's ready to give up or about to give up or nothing like that. And that may be the camera angle because we can't really see her face at that point. As this is going on, then we get Paola Mayfield, who comes running down the ringside, and then she attacks Santana Garrett. Not the person who cheated her out of the championship, not the person who dropped her on top of a book, not the person that took her championship opportunity away. Santana Garrett, because why not? And they try to justify Mayfield attacking Garrett, but they got none. It's like, what is happening here? What kind of idiot is she supposed to be? So they have her come out here to stop this match, to attack the person that she had already beaten. Mayfield had already beaten her and went to the championship, and she lost. That's her fault. She had 2 championship matches, And somehow, I guess in their universe, it's Santana Garrett's fault. What? Why? Why? This is what makes it hard to just go with WoW, because it's like they want you just to forget about all this other stuff that happened until we say that it's important for you to remember it. But we don't want you to remember the other stuff that contradict the things that we're trying to do to tell the story that we want to tell. And then it just makes you question the booking in the first place. If this was the narrative, if this was the story that you were trying to tell, why'd you have Paola Mayfield win in the first place? It could have been so much easier if we had here's the number one contenders match. Paola Mayfield, Santana Garrett, they have the match. Somewhere in the course of the match, it looks like Mayfield is going to win, but she doesn't get it. Maybe the ref sees her attempting to cheat. Maybe she has a foot on the ref. I don't know. Whatever reason that the ref would not assume the count, let's go with that. And then you have Garrett win. She goes over. She gets the championship match, and she goes to face off against the Classmaster. Now, Mayfield has a gripe. And then this would make sense. Especially if she was noted as or heard saying that if I can have the match, then no one will, or something along those, like a promo that helps sells the idea that she was pissed off that she didn't get what she wanted, or that she felt like she was cheated out of it. She doesn't have to be legitimately cheated. She just has to feel that way. And she has to feel that way based on something that we saw. But in this instance, we didn't see that. Not only did she not be cheated, she won the match. She went over on Santana Garrett, and she got the title match. So what is this beef about? Why is she suddenly, Garrett was a thorn in her side. How was she a thorn in her side? It is so ridiculous. I don't know if I've seen a wrestling show, and I'm going to say show, not promotion. I don't know if I've seen a wrestling show that has had the amount of revised history that WoW will create. I mean, it gets so difficult to want to root for somebody because no one's over to begin with. And then they'll have moments like these that just defy logic. And I go back to saying what I have said previously. It's as if WoW depends on their fans just accepting what they give them. It's as if WoW depends on having their fans hear the explanations of the commentators are like, yeah, that's what happened. I can absolutely see why some of those people just dropped off of WoW. If you were a wrestling fan walking into this show and you were expecting some sort of personal issues, people that were, I'm not going to take away from the quality of the match, but personal issues, having the championships mean something, having a personality that you can believe in and either want to root for or root against. If those things had happened, I could see people wanting to stick with it, but I also can see that at this stage, why the ones that didn't want to stick with WoW did not. Because they don't make it no easier for you to do it. Let me use the Classmaster for example just for a second. Because anybody that's heard this podcast for any length of time already know that at one point in time I was saying that, hey, there's potential there. I was pushing for, like, if she can just get out of doing stupid stuff. And then I saw her personal wrestling promotion, and I just gave up on it. But having said that, let's imagine, for instance, that the Classmaster actually got the chance to speak. And within these promos and her time to get on the microphone and speak, she gets herself over and she explains who the Classmaster is, why the Classmaster is doing what she's doing, why she's hooked up with Samantha Smart, why she's going to be the champion forever, whatever the case may be. Well, she might be able to actually get that gimmick over. It's possible. Stranger things have happened, which is why I don't get on them for the. I might not like the gimmick. I can easily admit that I might not like the gimmick, and I don't like hers. But sis is not the only person on that show's gimmick that I don't like, and that's largely built on the fact that they're just one-note characters. What you see is what you get, and there's nothing else beyond that. But say that she did get a chance to get a microphone and say some stuff and tell you why and her motivation and so on and so forth. Well, you might want to see her actually either keep defending it, or if she's obnoxious enough, you might want to be rooting for somebody to have her lose. But we never get that. We never get her to a point where she gets the gimmick. And not for nothing, the time that she was on commentary, I thought she was fine. She actually spoke. I was like, oh, wow, she actually said some things here. If I heard this every week, I might feel differently. But past that point, we haven't heard another word out of her. She just does the same stuff that she does. Bug eyes, point at her head. To show the book, slap the book. Hold it above her head, open up the gown. That's pretty much it. I wanted to believe in the class. I did. I wanted to believe in her. But I don't think that is going to get any better with that. Well, first off, we already know that this stuff is shot. It's a done deal. It doesn't make any difference. But I wanted to. I just lost the faith in it. But I will also admit I don't fully believe that is not just her, but everybody else that falls into this category. I don't believe that this is fully their fault because they don't get a chance. They do not get a chance to tell you, the audience, who they are or why they're doing what they're doing or whatever motivations they may have. They just do not get a chance to tell you that. And back to Wow's revisionist history thing, that's just bad TV. Like, can you imagine another television show getting away with that? That something happens and we're just going to completely tell you that, well, no, what you saw then, that didn't happen. This is what happened. Can you imagine any other show on television being able to get away with that? Because most people that watch these shows, whether that be an hour-long drama, whether that be a sitcom, whether that be another wrestling show, they are invested enough in that show that if they did something like that, they'd be called out on it. WoW doesn't get called out on things like that because their fans don't care. Most of them don't. It's just, all right, that's what it said, so I guess that's what it's supposed to be. I had one good week. I had one good week with WoW and their program. And then it reverted back to this. And I am not looking forward to the next thing. I'm pretty sure I already know who's winning this. Just just based on what the things that took place at their Vegas show. I think this might be coming around to it now, so I won't repeat it, but and there's almost no build to this, and good Lord. Anyhow, let's get out of that, and let me just read the preview for the next episode. Now, while I am reading this, you probably would have already seen it or getting close to get to see it. So just take what I'm reading with a grain of salt. This is me reading it for the first time because I haven't watched it yet. So the next episode that is going to appear on WoW is going to be Season 3, Episode 42, the title, Brazilian Blowout. We'll have to see why they titled it that. It's a WoW superhero debut. Hailing from the South American rainforest, Gabriela Cruz is a force to be reckoned with, and she vows to crucify the competition. Fury welcomes the Brazilian bombshell to WoW roster in singles action. The high-flying Mighty Mites, Sugar and Spice, announce a surprise trio partner in the ring before they take on the Alliance, Reina Del Rey, BK Rhythm, and Gigi Gianni, led by Adriana Gambino. Goldie Collins, minus her pampered pal, Katarina Jinx, moves over to the singles division for a woman-to-woman bout with Xena Phoenix. In the main event, it's an all-out fatal four-way match as Genesis, Princess Aussie, Tormenta, and Paola, the Colombian GOAT, come out swinging to become the number one contender for the WoW World Championship. Okay. So let's see here. We got Gabriela Cruz, who's going to be their new face in WoW. If I am going off of WoW's previous use of debuting talent, she may well debut to a loss. Because it's WoW and that's what they tend to do. Speaking of Cruz, whatever happened to Catalina Cruz? I mean, she was around for a little while and then she just kind of vanished. What did she have, like 3 matches? Lost all 3 of them and then just disappeared? So I don't know. Who knows? Well, maybe she might actually break the streak. It's not like they haven't had somebody win on their debut. The only person I can think of right now is Robbie Rocket. I think she might be the only person that I can call on from just off the top of my head as a winner in their debut match. So that's a toss-up. I would go with Fury, but and I go with that, like I said, just based on the odds. The odds have been debuts equal loss. I can hope that I'm wrong. What else do they have here? They got the Mighty Mites. Well, Spice, the fact that she's back at all is a plus. So Spice has come back from graduating college and just celebrating nonstop. So I like Sugar and Spice. I just think I don't like the name. I don't like the name because just think about this. They say Sugar and Spice all the time. They say it to the point that it might as well just be their tag team name. Here's the team of Sugar and Spice. Be done with that. We don't have to call it the Mighty. It's like 2 opposing names. And the only reason they want to call them the Mighty Mice is because they're short. Let's just call that for what it is. That's the only reason they want to use that name. They should just drop that and just call them Sugar and Spice. It's the team of Sugar and Spices. Be done with it. But considering that they're in the ring with the Alliance, oh boy. I would have to see who their partner is going to be because the Alliance has an awful record. And I'm going to say this to all four members. I love you guys. I really do. But why? Come on. You all know that WoW has not booked you in the best way. So, look, just work with me here. Gosh. I don't. Let's say Sugar and Spice. Let's say them. I might regret that when they come out with, I don't know, here's Steffi Slays as their partner. If that's the case, I might regret that decision. Let's go with that for this particular one. Collins and who is she up against? I've lost Xena Phoenix. Okay, Xena Phoenix. It should be Xena Phoenix. She should get in there and tap Goldie Collins out. And there should be no other. It shouldn't be her skating by. It shouldn't be I just won by the skin of my teeth. It shouldn't be any of that. She should go in there and she should be tapping Goldie Collins out. And then the main event. As I just stated, because of the show that they had and the results of that show that took place in Vegas, I am going to say Tormenta. Because this is the only other time that she has gone after some contendership for the title. And spoiler, in those particular shows, they had her listed as being a WoW champion. So this might be that point. But in fairness to the situation, they have also shown us all on camera, on their own show, Princess Ozzy and Tormenta with the tag team titles. So, make of that what you will and take that with a grain of salt. WoW seems to do certain things just to be able to cover their bases. Which also begs the question, if they're shooting this type of footage where they can cover their bases, why are they having things that don't match? They should have had some other footage available. And somebody should have been there in that edit booth or the edit suite and saying, hey, don't use that. They don't have the titles yet. Get another clip. But that's it. That is where we are with that. That's my prediction, and those are the results of the match. And as I read this and I see Adriana Gambino coming out there, and I earlier read that she is now one half of the NWA Women's Tag Team Champions, it does make me feel like, I wonder what this is going to mean for her. I really wish, and this is just a side note before I close things out, I really wish that the Brat Pack would get some momentum underneath them on this show. I really do. There's a couple of people on WoW, regardless of what the gimmicks are and whether I think that they're ready for the spot that they're in and stuff like that. There's a couple of people there that I actually like, despite the fact that they may have just shown up in wrestling because of WoW. I don't fully understand, nor do I like the Goldie Collins gimmick. But I will give her this. She's committed to it. And she does seem to work hard. What I wish they would do is elaborate on who Collins is, because the dog trainer thing, doesn't really work. And I think it's time for her to start to evolve out of that. She doesn't come out to the ring with a dog in the first place. And beyond the fact that she's an animal instinct and they bring it up every week, you wouldn't even know that she's a dog trainer. Or that's supposed to be her gimmick to begin with. So that's another case of the potential is there. Because if you was going to ask me up front, like, who would I pick between Collins and Classmasters having a stronger gimmick? Collins. Easily Collins. Phoenix needs to get a personality. I think she's capable in the ring. Of course, she does have some growth to do, but she has to get a personality other than I am just trying to do this for my fans and my family and my friends, and I want to win because I want to make people happy. She needs to get something beyond that. As do every other babyface that's on this show, to be fair with them. Every babyface on this show needs to get some sort of personality attached to them. I actually like Genesis. She delivers a good promo. She just didn't have good promo material. It's been the same thing. And if I hear her talk about that stupid Team Exile one more time, I'm like, man, if I could change the channel here. If I did not have to monitor this channel, it's one of those things that would make me just quit. And I question still Fury's role in WoW. When I see her and I think about what she was as the Priestess Hollow O'Hara, and how for that year when she created that side of her persona and she was getting booked and she was on the posters and she was the primary focus, and she had really established herself, and then she turned over into being furious. Like, goddamn, I hope that WoW's paying her well. That's all I can say. I hope WoW is paying her well to more or less give them her wrestling career. Because that's what she's did. She's given WoW her wrestling career. And how WoW has convinced certain people on their roster to publicly be like, I'm not wrestling anywhere else other than WoW. How they have convinced some of them to do that, I'll never know. Sugar and spice should have been a bigger thing. I don't expect them to get over on Rana Del Rey. They've already shown the example that Rana can beat them both up. But Sugar and Spice, work well together. They are fun to watch. And when they get a team that they have some chemistry with, they're great. Which is why I really would have liked them to have had a series with the Brat Pack. Because the Brat Pack seemed willing to and capable of working their style. Or at least complementing the style. I don't know if we're ever going to get that, because the main event spot seems to be occupied, as it has been forever, by Miami Sweet Heat. Nothing against Miami Sweet Heat, but I do think it's time for us to move on. And I think that's all of it. I think that's all of them. So, in lieu of that, before I even go into my normal ending run, thank you for listening thank you for allowing me to rant on WoW and the things that have gone on the show and how they portrayed their wrestlers or their superheroes. And I still say that is a short-sighted tag. I was trying to think of a good name for it. But I still say that is a short-sighted tag that they applied to their wrestlers, somebody's got to be a bad guy. I'm sorry. I'm sure Jeannie Buss looked at, well, they're all superheroes, whatever. Somebody's got to be a bad guy there. And somebody not only has to be a bad guy, somebody's got to be committed to being a bad guy. There's got to be some kind of heat from somebody somewhere for people to get involved and interested in this show. And if everybody's just a superhero, if everybody there is a good guy, and I know I play a bad guy on TV, but I have this children's crusade that I do in my hometown, so support me. If it's stuff like that, it does make it hard to get past it. You got to have some level of disbelief that you can apply to your wrestlers. And I know they don't want to upset or make Jeannie Buss feel bad, but I would really seriously think about rebranding that away from Wild Superheroes. I would. If for no other reason for what I just said, you got to get somebody to believe in it. They don't have to believe in all of it, but they got to believe in something. And I use the movie reference all the time. That Ben Affleck is not Batman. When you go to, or Robert Pattinson, I guess he's the Batman now. But either one of them, that they're not Batman when you go to the movies, but you want to be invested in it. You want to believe for that hour and a half to 2 hours that dude on that screen is Batman, and he has got to do something to save the day. And you want to believe the person that he's up against is a bad guy. Now, granted, it's a movie, and it has a little bit more leeway than wrestling does. And that's where I think the disconnect with some of them happens, is that they believe that this is an acting job, and I can just tell people that, well, I love what I do, and, blah, 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 and come support me when I do my crusade for homeless dogs or whatever. Because there's been several of them who have been bad guys that have shown up on press and start talking about things like that. I don't understand that either. Seems like WoW oftentimes will book every bad guy that they have to go and do some press somewhere. Which I just don't get. I don't understand it. So we'll leave it at that. Thank you again, everyone, for tuning into the show. I absolutely appreciate you. And also, I want to make a quick shout out to Ray Gunn, who put an appreciation post on Reddit. Is a WPN appreciation post, which I absolutely love. Ray Gunn, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. She put that up mentioning the show and that I do the reviews for WoW on a week-to-week basis, and basically reviewed me pretty good. Talked about what I do week to week, how she came across it. It's like she was looking for somebody that did some deep dive reviews on WoW and not just saying everything's great and everything's amazing. Brought up that I guess the upload schedule, because I'm always about a week behind. You hear this, it's generally about a week underneath what is about to air. Brought up that about the interviews, that I would love to do an interview, but I've also said that I do not think it's going to happen. Don't think it's going to happen. I don't know if she's heard it. So Ray Gunn, I'm going to say this to you. I have mentioned on this show that on a few occasions, I have reached out to some people who are not part of WoW any longer. And I mentioned that because she talked about it would be great to hear somebody who she knows that people that's on the show wouldn't be able to say anything, but maybe somebody that's off of it like Jasmine, Allura, Evelyn Rivera, Osaka, Heidi Howitzer, and Nikki Duke. Ariel Scott, for those who want to know. She mentioned that, it might be interesting to talk to them when they're, no longer attached to WoW. But I have said on this show that at least on 4 different occasions, 4, where I've talked to talent, that talent had a lot to say, to me at least. And some of that, not pleasantries towards WoW, if we're going to be completely honest. Nothing pleasant towards WoW. And at the time, perfectly willing to speak to me and talk about their experiences on the show. But when it came down to booking them for the show, getting them to actually speak and or say something, they kind of vanished. Were unable to say anything, never heard from again. That's happened at least 4 different times from 4 different people, all attached to WoW. And the moment it came down to go time for doing the interview, gone. That's another one of those, make of that what you will. I firmly believe, and no one has confirmed this, so this I cannot prove. But I firmly believe that there is something that ties some of these talents up that prevents them, or at least makes them concerned, we'll use that, about saying things about WoW on a public platform. And we can leave it at that. I will still look. I will still reach out. I will still look. Maybe one of these days I would have to probably block out the people that said what they said. But maybe one of these days I'll actually put some of the shots up of the people that I did talk to in exchange, like an email and Instagram and stuff like that. But I could not share any names because I'm assuming, again, if they just dropped out and they didn't want to do it, then there must be something. So, I'll probably steer clear of that. However, and I'm not saying I'm gonna, but if I do, yeah, just expect to be able to, you might be able to read it, but I for the sake of their protection, we'll put it that way, for the sake of them, we'll block out the names, we'll block it, we'll cover it up completely. And that's going to do it. That is the show this week. I was trying to get myself caught up past the Father's Day weekend. So I got as I'm recording this, I got a lot of editing to do. A lot. I don't know why I do this to myself. I did not need to create a talk segment, but I've done it now. So I have to scour the internet to try to find people. That have done these interviews and promos and stuff like that to be able to fit into the space and my musical interlude and stuff like that. I just, I try to do stuff to make the show relatively entertaining, not just me talking for like 2 hours. You got to have a break in there somewhere. And then I go back in there and I put in all these chapter markers so you can skip to stuff. Whew. I mean, you have no idea. I swear to you, it's almost a full-time job. Almost. It never crossed my mind how much work would go into doing a podcast when you're trying to add different segments and look for different things and research and this and that and blah, 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 blah. It never crossed my mind how much work would go into it. But I can tell you firsthand, if you're trying to do one, it can grow on you. It'll just silently grow. Look at what my podcast was to what it is now. Go back to like episode 25. I think that thing's like an hour long or less than an hour long. Now I'm beyond 2 of just talking about WoW. That's something. Anyhow, let's close this thing out, and I'll try to do this the quick way. So, If you're listening to this on YouTube, do the YouTube things like, share, and subscribe. It always helps. I appreciate that. If you are checking me out on some sort of podcast medium, because we play on greater podcast platforms everywhere, a rating and or review is helpful. If you cannot find it for whatever reasons, I cannot imagine why, but if you cannot find it, you know what you can do. You can go to the WPNWrestling.com, WPNWrestling.com for the website. It has everything. It has every video that has gone on, well, most videos that have gone on the WPN, all collected there that are running on its own stream. I put the playlist together for that. So it's got its own little stream, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You Got It is there, including commercials. Yes, it has to make its own money, but it is there for you to watch and you to view stuff dating back to 2013, again with talents and names that you recognize and know from bigger locations right now. Some of which that have gone to TNA, some that's gone to AEW, some that's gone to the WWE, and some that have gone to WoW. It works for some people. And every podcast that has gone there also. Scroll down, you'll see every podcast release, and it's a bunch of them. A bunch. You got your pick of the litter there. So there's a lot of content, a lot of things to pick from. I thank your time for listening to it and finding this. And if you go into that website to find other things, it is open to you, and enjoy. And on that note, I will finish this off by saying that this is Mr. Green saying that this is Mr. Green saying so long. And we will see you on the next go-round. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.